is it that strikes the modern reader in Rumi's words? First of all, he is perceived as a universal voice calling to us from beyond the concerns of conventional religiosity and limited beliefs.
There is no doubt that Mevlana is a universal human being,
Yo.
one who transcended the limitations of his culture and era.
Relax and listen to this.
Spiritual attainment went beyond blind
What you listening to?
spiritual certainty,
Go to Rumi,
but it never weakened
the
his
greatest
loyalty
poet in
and
history.
love for the Quranic revelation and the prophetic inheritance. It is very difficult for modern Americans, disillusioned as they are,
It's very difficult for modern Americans.
doctrines, to understand how it is possible to reach this state and remain a Muslim. For the Muslim mystic, however, Islam remains an ample field for the liberated mind and heart. The second
Is
reason
it TikTok?
for popularity might be that the boundary between divine and human love is left ambiguous. Many of the first translations of Mevlana have been those that could be interpreted as a kind of mystical eroticism. It is not fair to blame the translators for this. Much of Mevlana's expression during his early intoxicated period is intensely ecstatic, with a flavor of the erotic. I would love to kiss you. The price of kissing is your life. Now my loving is running toward my life, shouting, what
Kiss
a
of that. I told him you.
let's buy it. Furuz and Fad, number 388. This kind of poetry has caused one magazine of literary erotica to offer a volume of Rumi as a bonus for new subscribers. So Rumi's appeal is approaching universality, but the trained mystic is sensitive to the relationship between metaphor and reality. For the earthly lover, however, his poetry elevates the sensibilities, spiritualizes the love relationship, and raises it to incandescence. This is not the first time. That this kind of influence has entered
Gonna
the
talk some abuse.
Euro-Christian world from Islamic culture. It has its precedent in the period of the Provençal troubadours, who transmitted a poetic impulse from Islamic Spain. Mevlana not only explicitly addressed the relationship of human and divine love, he offered a spirituality that was profoundly relational. Not only do all loves lead eventually to the divine love, but there is a mystery and possibility in spiritual friendship and dialogue. In his relationship with Shams, Husamuddin, and Salahuddin, Mevlana modeled a rare form of relationship. The meeting of two beings who are each reflections of the divine for each other. Some people see in this a step beyond even the very privileged, yet hierarchical relationship of sheikh and murid. Perhaps it is the fulfillment of the hadith. The believer, mu'min, is the mirror of the believer, mu'min. A relationship where there is no power or privilege exercised by one over another, or in other words, a relationship of true love. Our third point has to do with ecstasy and intoxication. Mevlana is an ecstatic in a modern world starved for real ecstasy. There is such a longing in our synthetic and technological culture for something that is natural and ecstatic. Spiritual experience should carry us beyond our mundane concerns to an experience of our essential human nature and our true spiritual home. Alcohol consumption and drug addiction are dim and distorted reflections of this longing of the human soul for freedom and union. But of course, Sufism is much more than a body of techniques for producing ecstasy. As we know, particularly from a mature mystic like Shams of Tabriz, there is a sobriety that encompasses intoxication. If anyone will read Shams's Maqalat, it is clear that this person who had such an intoxicating effect on Mevlana was himself rather sober, even if his effect on Rumi was intoxicating. finally, what I think is the most significant value of Mevlana, he is the clearest, most powerful voice of cosmic divine love. He awakens us to the fact that not only is God the beloved of the human being, which is radical enough in our post-Judeo-Christian culture, but even more shocking and profound, the human being is the beloved of God. If we look up the word translate in the dictionary, we find that the origin of its meaning is to move a saint's body or relics from one place to another. The translation of Mevlana's words is the carrying of that sainthood into our time and culture. In choosing to translate anything, we should ask, what was the intention or function of the original work? A work in the field of science calls for a different kind of translation than a work of poetry. The translation of poetry must always be the most subjective form of translation. What I mean by subjective here is the felt presence of an individuality. Not only is an individuality the proximate source of the poetry, but the poetry also must be transmitted through the sensibilities of another poet. Of course, the success of the poetry translated will depend on the degree to which the qualities of the original are preserved and expressed. In the East, the relationship between master and apprentice dictates that the apprentice's qualities be assimilated to the master's qualities. In the West, a great deal more emphasis is placed on individuality and originality. From the Western translator of Sufi poetry, we should expect a little of both. To some extent, the translator must allow himself or herself to be annihilated in the presence of the master. And at the same time, the living inspiration must find a form with the greatest contemporary poetic potential. What is it in poetry that causes its effect? How similar are the poetic potentials of one language to another? In Rumi's case, there is the container of meter and rhyme into which the content of language is poured. In contemporary American poetry, the artifice of rhyme and meter has been somewhat out of favor for most of the last century. The rhythms have shifted from controlled and predictable patterns to patterns that reflect a different sense of improvisation.
Yo, it's like the fourth room I've been to. People keep leaving, bro. Please.
Oh God, I'm the host now. What the fuck?
Guys, can we start, guys?
What
Okay,
the fuck? You wanna start the game? Or...
I've never been a host. I don't know what the fuck I'm
what's
doing.
up, my nibbles?
You just press square.
Yo, what's good? You want that birthday bashes?
I got kicked from my own lobby.
The English is to contain levels of meaning. They must be original, and yet consistent with the original intent of the poetry. The choice of what to emulate in the poetry of Rumi must in the end be left up to the skills and inspiration of the translator. Personally, I would choose to remain fairly close to the original rhythm of the original, and to try to preserve some of its sublime tone. At the same time, since economy is a virtue in poetry, I have often preferred those Anglo-Saxon words that have fewer syllables over those Latinate words that have more syllables. Listen to the reed and the tale it tells, how it sings of